Good evening, and let us agree that it is an evening of truth, but not the kind we can stack up on a shelf or recite like a pledge. It is an evening of communing with truth, and let us understand that we really mean truth in its spiritual sense, the living presence that is closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. We have not come to collect ideas. We have come to be discovered by reality. That is a different evening altogether. Now I am going to interrupt myself to say this plainly. There is a truth you can memorize, and there is truth that takes possession of you. There is a truth you can quote to a friend, and there is truth that stands up inside you with quiet authority. There is a truth that decorates the mind, and there is truth that reforms the life. And the difference is not one of vocabulary, but one of realization, of consciousness. The kingdom of God is within you. If that is so, then truth must cease being a statement about God and become an awareness of God as here. You know the frustration. I know it too. I understand it. I've read the books. I've said the affirmations, and yet nothing seems to change. Do not condemn yourself for that. That is not failure. That is a faithful indicator that the mind has admired truth, but has not yet crossed an inner threshold where truth reveals itself. And I'm letting you in on the secret now. That threshold is real, it is tender, and it is within you. It is not reached by argument or recitation. It is given in a moment of silent grace, and it is recognized by a peace not of your making. Now remember this, because it will govern everything that follows. The truth you recite is not the truth that frees. The truth revealed within you is the liberating power. I can of mine own self do nothing is not a sentence of helplessness. It is the doorway. The Father within me doeth the works. That is the law of spiritual causation. When truth is realized as presence, it performs its own office. Your task is not performance. Your task is contact. And so this evening, we will take a simple, honest path. First, we will set the concept in place. Why truth as information leaves us hungry. Then we will come to the missing link. The very threshold where words fall away and reality announces itself. From there, we will learn how to approach and reapproach that holy place, quietly, practically, until contact is not an accident, but a way of life. We will not hurry. We will not strain. We will be still enough to notice the subtle evidences that tell us God is on the field. And as we walk this together, the proof will not be in applause or argument. It will be in fruit. The changed tone of a day, the easing of a body, the reconciliation of a relationship. Supply appearing without clamor. This is our evening of truth, not to be recited, but to be realized. Let us face, tenderly and honestly, the question that haunts sincere seekers. Why does so much spiritual knowledge produce so little fruit in health, supply, peace, and relationships? How can a shelf sagging with books, a memory stocked with verses, and a tongue fluent in affirmations still live under the same fears, the same shortages, the same quarrels? Do not take that as a verdict against you. Take it as a faithful diagnosis of method. We have thought that knowing about truth is the same as living in truth. It is not. I am going to interrupt myself to say this as simply as I know how. The mind can agree with truth, and the life remain unchanged. Because agreement is of the letter, and transformation is of the spirit. The letter can describe the sun. The spirit is the light and the warmth. The letter can draw a map. The Spirit is the country itself under your feet. You may memorize that God is love and still answer your day from fear. You may declare abundance and still conduct your business in anxiety. You may speak of forgiveness and still defend your resentments as if they were treasures. That is not hypocrisy. That is the gap between words and consciousness. Now remember this, because it becomes a sober mercy to us. By their fruits you shall know. If after faithful study the fruit does not appear, if peace does not set a new tone in you, if supply does not come without clamor, if old antagonisms are not losing their sting, the missing element is not another book and not a louder affirmation. It is not that the teaching is untrue. It is that truth has not yet crossed from letter into realization. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. If the reward is not open, it is the secret that needs tending. Do not misunderstand me. This is not a campaign against intellect. God forbid. The intellect is a fine servant. It fetches the texts. It arranges the ideas. It keeps the room in order while we wait. But it cannot deliver revelation. The lamp is useful, but without electricity no light appears. The menu is descriptive, but it does not feed you. Study prepares. Spirit performs. The mind can knock. Only the inner presence opens. What then is missing? Only this. A moment of inner contact. A breath of silent grace, in which truth ceases to be statement and reveals itself as presence. In that instant, not dramatic, not noisy, the center of your living shifts. You stop trying to add truth onto a fearful self, and you begin to live out from truth as yourself. The problem is not solved by analysis. It is dissolved by a higher authority felt within. And the proof? It comes as fruit, quietly, naturally, inevitably, when consciousness rests in the presence that is already within you. Let me say this as plainly as I can, and I am going to interrupt every other thought to make room for it. The missing link is not another statement about God. It is the moment in which God is no longer a statement. It is the quiet, inward crossing from thinking about truth to being touched by truth, from arranging ideas of spirit to discovering spirit as the very life within you. Not a new belief, not a new phrase, not a new technique, an inward shift of consciousness. Do you feel the difference? Up to the threshold, it is, I am trying, I am reaching, I am organizing my thought. And then, no trumpet, no drum. It is. Something you did not manufacture announces itself without noise. The burden slides an inch off your shoulders. The air in the room changes, if only by a degree. The mind that was pushing loosens its grip, and there is a sense, however slight, of arrival. That is contact. That is the place where truth stops being words and becomes presence, where the kingdom that has always been within is felt as within. Now do not confuse this with emotional excitement. No, no, this is not frenzy. This is not a spiritual pep rally. This is a settling into quietness, a felt sufficiency, a gentle authority that does not argue and does not strain. In that pause, you hear nothing new with the ears, but you know something new with the heart. You find yourself no longer asking, will it work? Because the question itself has dissolved. What has taken its place? A hush that testifies, it is finished, though nothing in the outer has yet moved. That hush is the sign. Here is your operational evidence, and please remember it, for it will guide you safely. When the inner agitation stops, even for 5 seconds, even for the space of a soft breath, that stopping is the presence on the field. The Father that seeth in secret is speaking in a language older than words. In that instant, the problem loses its chair at the head of the table. You are not whipping up courage, you are noticing God. You are not insisting upon an outcome, you are consenting to an indwelling sufficiency. And let us be scrupulously fair in our hearts. This crossing is not reserved for mystics or ministers or those who have polished halos. High or low, rich or poor, black or white, sick or well, saint or sinner, what difference could any of that make to a presence that is already your life? If the kingdom of God is within you, then this threshold belongs to you by birthright. Some will find the rhythm more readily, as a born musician finds the melody. Others will count the notes for a while. But the music is in you. So the missing link is not an attainment added to you. It is a discovery of what has never been absent. It is the moment you cease leaning on words and lean into the silence that utters itself. And when that has occurred, even fleetingly, you will recognize the shift from "I can of mine own self do nothing" to "the Father within me doeth the works," not as a doctrine to admire, but as a state to rest in. Beautiful. Let us come very close now and speak plainly of the feel of it. Because you have been faithful to sit with these ideas, and you want to know how to recognize the actual moment. First, there is a quieting that is not forced. The breath is not managed, it is noticed. The shoulders are not lifted in effort, they drop of themselves. The mind, which a moment ago was composing prayers and arranging arguments, simply stops its commentary, sometimes in a full stop, sometimes in a soft dimming. And there appears within a tender assent, a yes, that does not come from you. Not a loud yes, not a triumphant yes, a soft yes. It carries no plan. It carries authority. Now let me interrupt myself and say what it is not. It is not a trance. It is not a vision that dazzles your eyes or a voice that shakes the room. It is not a blankness that you have muscled into place by suppressing thought. And I do not mean a trip to Cloud 9, strumming harps while the laundry piles up. You remain in your life. The phone may ring. A child may laugh in the next room. But within, there is a center that is not moving. And that center is not made of you. It is presence, closer than breathing, and nearer than hands and feet. And here is the inner reversal that tells you the threshold has been crossed. The sentence, "I can of mine own self do nothing," ceases to sound like failure and becomes relief. You stop trying to move reality with willpower. You stop persuading God. You stop bargaining with the universe. You let the Father within do the works, and you know that you have let Him, because the strain goes out of you. The reins slip from the fist into the open hand, and nothing collapses. Instead, something begins to carry. Then attention reorders itself. The problem remains as a picture, but it loses its throne. Fear, which had been narrating the whole play, steps off the stage. The mind may still notice facts, but they are not tyrants now. You look at the same figures on the ledger, the same diagnosis on the paper, and yet it is as if you were looking at them through clear water. The harsh edges soften. The argument stops. The room inside grows spacious. A hush says, "I am here," and the need to be certain about outcomes dissolves. If you are beginning, cherish this. It may be 5 seconds. It may be 30. That is already the door opening. Do not measure or clutch at it. Do not announce it or analyze it. Be grateful. Be quiet. And when it passes, return again. These brief touches are not failed meditations. They are the training of a new rhythm, and rhythm is learned in steps. Why does even a small peace begin to dissolve outer discord? Because the cause has shifted. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. When consciousness no longer feeds the appearance with fear and frantic manipulation, the seeming law that held it together loosens. Health begins to find its balance. Supply finds its channels. A tone of kindness enters speech without rehearsal. Without pushing one piece on the outer board, the game changes because the player has changed. Where I am, God is. Where God is, I am. And from that quiet authority within, fruit appears, naturally, without clamor, because the tree is now rooted in presence. Now comes the great reversal, and I want you to feel its mercy as well as its authority. We are not here to solve problems. We are here to realize God. And when God is realized as the very life within, the Father within doeth the works. That is not poetry. That is spiritual law. As long as the mind appoints itself mechanic of the universe, tightening this bolt, loosening that screw, it remains bound to the very machinery it fears will fail. But when attention yields from fixing to finding, from tinkering to touching presence, the yoke changes. Be still and know that I am God. Not be clever, not be forceful. Be still. I must interrupt this to uncover the hidden habit that keeps many of us circling the same mountain. We take glorious statements. God is my supply. Love governs. I am whole. And we use them as levers to pry open a desired outcome. We recite not to rest in God, but to manipulate sense testimony, to move the chess pieces. Do you see? The words are true, but the use is fear. The mouth is praying, the heart is calculating. And so the mind stays in personal effort, and the threshold does not open. Beautiful truths pressed into the service of control cannot reveal the controller. Prayer, then, must be returned to its simplicity. Go into your inner closet. Shut the door of the senses. Pray in secret. Not an outward pleading to a distant monarch, but an inward listening where the indwelling kingdom speaks for itself. Thy will be done is not resignation to fate, it is consent to presence. In that consent, the plea subsides and the hearing begins. You are not telling God the news, you are letting God announce Himself as here. Now remember this. Write it on your heart. You will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. Why? Because knowing God is light, and light does not analyze darkness. It ends it by being itself. Analysis, even when dressed in spiritual words, is often a subtle form of fear management. We think if we can name every cause, track every symptom, predict every turn, we will be safe. No, no. Safety is in alignment, not in information. Stillness is not passivity. It is agreement with the only power, the one presence that is already where you are. How then do you know you have left the problem to the presence? The strain goes out of you. You stop watching the clock of demonstration. You forget to check the symptom. You find yourself answering the day's simple duties with unforced kindness. The inner argument has ceased, and in that hush, something is carrying that is not your will. If a thought of the difficulty returns, you do not wrestle. You turn again, quietly, swiftly, into the inner room, consenting once more to the I that is God. And so the question shifts. We are no longer asking, how can I fix this? We are asking, how do I enter and re-enter this stillness, not once, not by accident, but as a learnable art? That is our next work together. For when contact becomes our habit, fruit becomes our atmosphere, and the Father who seeth in secret continues to reward openly. Meditation, then, must be restored to its rightful place, not as a misty pastime for delicate souls, but as an art that can be learned, practiced, and brought to fruit. I am in a position to say this to you with a great deal of authority, because I did not begin with skill. I began with bafflement. And yet, by simple obedience to an inner instruction, go within, close the door, I found that illumination is not a mystery reserved for a few. It is the natural disclosure of a presence already within you, made available by practice. Now, let me interrupt myself to correct a common notion. The aim is not to empty the mind as if blankness were godliness. No, no. The aim is receptivity, a poised, listening stillness in which truth reveals itself as the very life of you. When you close your eyes and gently close the door of the senses, you are not fleeing the world. You are consenting to privacy with the Father, who is closer than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. In that sacred secrecy, we do not inform God. We allow God to announce himself as here. As to the progression, expect it to be human and faithful. First, hints. Brief, unsought touches when the argument slows and a soft peace steals in. Then practice. Quiet, simple periods, morning and evening, where you sit, you turn within, you say nothing to get, you wait to receive. After a season, I have seen it after weeks for some, months for others, there comes the first concrete experience. Not a vision, not thunder, but a felt authority, a hush that says, I. From there, as devotion and consistency shape your days, this contact becomes daily. And in time, it may become frequent, 10, 20, even more moments slipping in between tasks, at the sink, at the phone, on the street. So natural that you can turn at will, which is to say, at the will that is now felt as your own. Practice moves illumination from accident to appointment. Do not make an idol of speed. Some of you will find the rhythm as a born musician catches a melody and plays by ear. Some will count the notes and learn by the book. Beautiful. Both can make music. Anyone and everyone can meditate, high or low, rich or poor, saint or sinner, because the kingdom you are turning to is within you already. Aptitude affects tempo, not access. Devotion and consistency are the teachers. 5 faithful minutes given daily will outrun 50 inspired minutes given once a month. How then to begin? Sit quietly. Close the door. Not only the wooden door, the inward door of attention. Let the body be at ease. No pleading, no performance. A simple inward acknowledgement. Father, here I am. Thy will be done. Then listen. If thoughts come, do not wrestle. Notice and return. If you touch peace for 30 seconds, bless it. If only 5, bless them. The Father that seeth in secret is schooling your capacity for hearing. These brief contacts are not interruptions to life. They are the life of it. Now remember this. Meditation trains the capacity for revelation. It is the deliberate cultivation of that moment of silent grace, until it no longer visits occasionally, but abides frequently, guiding the hours. And as this becomes your rhythm, you will discover why recited truth has not changed your reactions. It is because reactions rise from consciousness, not vocabulary. In our next step, we will look directly at that gap, how words inform while realization reforms. And you will see how this practice brings your knowledge under the government of presence, so that the Father within doeth the works, and the fruit appears without clamor. Let us draw the strands together now, and face this simple thing that has tripped us for years. Why does recited truth not transform? Because recitation functions at the level of thought, and thought is not the seat of causation. Thought arranges, consciousness begets. You can repeat God is love, and the mind becomes informed, but unless consciousness shifts, the heart still answers the day from fear. Words can sketch an arch over a doorway, but they cannot walk you through. Transformation requires a change beneath thought, an inner seeing that recenters you in presence. I must interrupt myself here, because many of us have innocently turned spiritual phrases into armor. We feel a pressure on the body, in the ledger, in the household, and we lift a sentence like a shield. God is my sufficiency. Divine order is established. All is well. For a moment the surface calms, as a hand smooths a wrinkled cloth. But if the sentence is used to push fear away, the fear remains the hidden engine. The mouth says truth. The root still trembles. No blame in this. It is not wickedness. It is method. We tried to do inner work with outer tools. What, then, is realization? It is not an improved statement. It is an unveiled fact. It is the simple, direct, unlabored knowing that truth is here, and that it is you in the sense of being your life. Not hope, not persuasion, a hush that says, I. In realization, you do not argue with appearances, because the basis of argument, doubt, has lost its authority. I can of mine own self do nothing, ceases to be a creed and becomes a relief. And in that relief, the Father within me doeth the works, is not a promise for later. It is a presence now. Here is a gentle self-test. Keep it by your bedside. When pressure comes, do I take up words to fight pictures on the screen of sense? Or do I turn within, shut the door, and rest in the one eye, presence? Do I try to make truth true by repeating it, or do I consent to the truth already being itself? If I find myself arguing with symptoms and figures, I am still in the realm of letter. If I find the strain going out and the need to win an outcome dissolving, contact has begun. Beautiful. That is the difference. Now remember this. The failure is not moral. It is methodological. You have been trying to mend consciousness with the tools of thought. Thought is a faithful servant. It gathers the texts, it sets the table, but only presence feeds. The letter can lead you to the edge. Realization takes you across. Therefore, keep the words as pointers, but do not mistake the arrowhead for the country it indicates. And since all of this must be proved in secret and rewarded openly, let us not postpone the proving. Right where you are, close the inward door. Let the shoulders drop of themselves. Whisper within, if you like, Father, here I am. Then be still. Do not reach, receive. If a phrase wishes to rise, let it be this: Thy will be done. And then listen. Do you notice, even faintly, the lessening of push, the softening of the question, the hint of an inner yes not made by you? Do not clutch it. Acknowledge it. That is realization beginning to occur. In that moment, the gap between words and consciousness narrows, and the Father that seeth in secret begins his open reward. From here, we will deepen this turning until the threshold is not visited rarely, but found at will. And fruit will testify without our pleading. Now, since all of this must be proved in secret and rewarded openly, let us turn together. Sit as you are. Close your eyes, the simple closing of the lids, and understand what you are doing. You are closing the door on the world for a moment. You are letting go the reins of managing outcomes. You are not abandoning life. You are consenting to privacy with the life within. Let the shoulders drop of themselves. Do not make a project of breathing. Simply notice that breath is present. There it is, arriving without your management, leaving without your permission. Beautiful. And notice now the mind's good habit of wanting to help. See how it reaches for a sentence to say, a plan to make, an outcome to protect. Do not quarrel with it. Do you notice that when you stop feeding it, it begins, all by itself, to grow quieter? Not forced, not blank, just quieter. If a phrase wishes to be used as a pointer, let it be this, once, softly, inwardly. The kingdom of God is within me. Do not chant it. Do not pound it. Use it as you would ring a doorbell, and then wait. Rest. Listen. Let the words open a space rather than fill it. Thy will be done. Father, here I am. If thoughts come about the body, the bill, the meeting, the child, do not fight. No. No. Fighting is another way of feeding. Instead, acknowledge and return. Again and again, return. Each return is prayer. Each return is obedience to go within, shut the door, and be still. If a scrap of fear jabbers, you need not contradict it. Turn from it as you would from a salesman at the door, and give your attention back to the silent room within. Now, do you notice, even faintly, the subtle shift? A stillness, not your stillness. A peace, not your peace. As if a quiet were settling over a lake that you did not still. Nearer than hands and feet, closer than breathing. A presence that does not argue and does not ask for proof, but simply is. The problem fades to the edge of the frame. The need to make something happen loosens. The sentence, I can of mine own self do nothing, ceases to pinch and becomes a relief. Something begins to carry. Stay with this a few breaths. No grasping, no countdown. If it is 5 seconds, bless the 5. If it is 30, bless the 30. If it seems absent, you have still planted the seed. You have kept the appointment. The Father that seeth in secret is schooling your hearing even when you feel dull. Return later. Return tomorrow. Return in the hallway, at the sink, before you answer the phone. This threshold is entered by yielding, and it will reveal itself, quietly, inwardly, unmistakably, until the inner room becomes your dwelling, and the outer life bears its fruit without your pleading. Now because the Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly, let us speak soberly of the open reward. Not fireworks, not headlines. Fruit. The tone of your being changes, and the tone writes itself into the scene without your arranging it. The first evidence is almost always this: you answer the same day from a quieter center. The email that would have stung receives a measured reply. The child's tantrum meets your soft eyes instead of your hard words. The body that was braced all night loosens by degrees, and with the loosening, sleep returns, appetite returns, breath returns. You did not fix the machinery. You abided in presence, and presence retuned the instrument. In supply, the change is equally natural. You stop living on the edge of a push. Calls are placed at wiser hours because you are not urgent. The right person answers because timing has married itself to intuition. An old invoice is paid without your chasing. A new opportunity appears not as a scheme, but as a door you suddenly notice has been there. Your activity continues. Yes, you keep books, you meet appointments, but the frantic manipulation falls away, and with it the sense of lack loosens its fingers. I am not speaking of magic. I am speaking of causation. Consciousness aligned with presence ceases to feed the picture of fear, and the picture changes. In relationships, the fruit often arrives as softened edges. You find yourself apologizing first because pride has lost its throne. Or you discover that you can listen all the way through another's complaint without building your defense while they speak. Sometimes, without speech at all, the very atmosphere of a room changes. Something that wanted a quarrel loses its appetite. Do you doubt it? When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. But let us understand that we really mean Lord in its spiritual sense, the indwelling presence that, when realized, governs the field. Now I must interrupt myself with a mercy. Human life continues. The phone still rings. The bill still arrives. A body may still ask for rest. Do not take the continuation of appearances as failure. No, no. The difference is that they no longer define your identity or hold authority over your peace. The problem begins to disappear, sometimes quickly, sometimes by slow dissolving, not because you have positively thought it away, but because you have ceased to enthrone it and have left it to the Father within to do the works. Light does not debate darkness. It is itself, and darkness cannot argue. How then do we protect this fruit? By the same secrecy that birthed it. Short, sacred returns to the inner sanctuary, at the sink, at the curb, between meetings. 5 seconds of yielded stillness carries more law than 5 hours of worry. Where I am, God is. Where God is, I am. Keep the appointment and let the open reward speak for itself. The life will tell on you. Steadier nerves, wiser timing, kinder speech, supply that rises without clamor. This is not spectacle. This is proof. The quiet authority of presence becoming the atmosphere of your days. Let us make this practical and keep it sacred. A life is shaped not by occasional heights, but by daily rhythms, and this rhythm must be simple enough to keep and quiet enough to protect. Morning, midday, evening, 3 gentle bells of the heart that do not ring in the street, but in the soul. In the morning, before the world lays its hands on you, yes, even before you read the message or consult the plan, sit up in bed or take a chair and close the door within. No pleading, no program, a simple acknowledgement. Father, here I am. Thy will be done. Then be still. If there is a phrase, let it be used as a doorbell and not as a speech. The kingdom of God is within me. Where I am, God is. Then listen. 30 seconds of true consent is better than 30 minutes of composing prayers. 5 seconds in which the strain goes out of you is seed enough for a day. At midday, return. Briefly, secretly, frequently. The sink becomes a chapel. The pause before answering the call becomes a sanctuary. The red light on the corner becomes an altar. No one knows. Keep a finger on the lip. We do not perform spirituality. We protect it. We do not argue for it. We abide in it. A single soft breath with attention turned inward. Father, will reset the axis of the hour. Do you notice how the urge to manage fades when you remember, I can of mine own self do nothing? Beautiful. In that yielding, the Father within me doeth the works, begins again to be felt. In sudden fear, because life still brings its gusts, stop. Even in the doorway, even with the paper in your hand, stop. Acknowledge presence. God is here. Release the need to fix. Whisper within, I can of mine own self do nothing. Then be still long enough to let the reins slip from the fist into the open hand. Do not count seconds, count surrender. The proof will be the lessening of push, the edge taken off the panic. That is enough to re-enter the room of your duty with a quieter step. In the evening, return for gratitude, but let it be gratitude without audit. Not tallying wins and losses. No. A simple noticing. Where did the day carry me more than I carried it? Thank you. The rest is yours. Then sleep in the confidence that the Father that seeth in secret keeps watch as you rest. Now remember this, 5 honest seconds of yielded stillness are worth more than an hour of mental wrestling. Anyone can keep these appointments. Parent with a crying child, worker under time, student between classes, because the kingdom is within, and no outer rearrangement is required to enter your own inner room. Secrecy guards the flame. Repetition feeds it. Fruit tells the tale. So we have named the missing link. We have touched the threshold where words yield to presence. And we have sketched a simple rule that crosses it more than once until contact becomes a way of life. Keep the appointments. Keep them quietly. And as we come to our final word, we will see why, in this way of living, you will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. Let us gather the thread and tie it, not as a knot that binds, but as a ribbon on a gift already given. We began by confessing what every sincere seeker has discovered, that truth in the mind does not yet change the day. We saw that the missing link is not a better statement, but a crossing, when truth ceases to be language and reveals itself as the indwelling presence. We learned how that threshold feels. The strain goes out, the yes, not of our making appears, and the problem steps down from its throne. We accepted the great reversal. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. And we took meditation down from the cloud and placed it where it belongs, as a learnable art by which flashes become daily contact, and daily contact becomes a life, proved not by noise, but by fruit, the open reward of a secret consent. Now remember this, and let me say it with the calm authority of experience. Do not seek better sayings. Seek inner seeing. Do not arrange sentences. Allow revelation. Words inform. Realization reforms, because it changes the consciousness from which you live. I am letting you in on the secret. You will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. Light does not study darkness to conquer it. Light is itself, and darkness cannot argue. For the next 24 hours, keep it holy in secrecy. Morning, midday, evening. 3 simple turnings. Close the inward door. Whisper if you wish, "Father, here I am. Thy will be done." Then be still for a few honest breaths. Look for the smallest evidence, the lessening of push, the soft settling of the shoulders, the quiet yes that carries no plan. Honor it. Do not parade it. Do not measure seconds. Measure surrender. Let the sentence arise if it helps. The kingdom of God is within me. And then let it go, so that the kingdom may speak for itself. And if you feel nothing, if the sky remains ordinary and the mind chatters its old tune, be at peace. The seed is planted. The soil learns the rain. Persistence is the farmer's faith. Keep the appointment tomorrow and the next day. The first concrete experience may arrive as 5 seconds of relief that no one can take from you. That is the door. Walk it again. In time, the hush will come more quickly, stay more surely, guide more gently, and the fruit will tell on you without your saying a word. So we will part outwardly and remain joined inwardly. Continue in communion. Protect it. Let the Father that seeth in secret give the next message in his own hour. Where I am, God is. Where God is, I am. Be still and know. Then go quietly about your duties, leaving the problem to presence, and watch as the open reward appears in its own beautiful order.